Some betrayals don't happen in the dark. They happen in daylight, over contracts and champagne, with smiles sharp enough to cut skin. I was standing beside my husband, Eric, when he announced to friends and family that he was launching a new consulting firm. Everyone clapped. I forced myself to smile. But then he dropped the bomb. And my partner is someone very special, my ex-wife Cassandra. The room erupted in surprise. I felt my heart crack like glass. My pulse roared in my ears. Cassandra beamed, slipping her hand on his shoulder like she never left. And Eric, he didn't even look at me. That was the night I realized. This wasn't just business. This was betrayal dressed as ambition. And I swore to myself, I'd make them both pay for their secrets. I barely slept that night. The applause from the party echoed in my head, mixing with Cassandra's smug smile. My husband hadn't just blindsided me. He'd humiliated me. At breakfast the next morning, Eric poured himself coffee like nothing had happened. "You were quiet last night," he said casually. I stared at him, gripping my mug so tightly it threatened to shatter. "Quiet? You announced a business with your ex-wife and didn't think I deserved a warning." He sighed, rubbing his temple. "Millie, don't be dramatic. Cassandra has connections, expertise. This is strictly professional." Strictly professional. The word stabbed me. If it were so professional, why did he hide it from me? My friends texted nonstop. How could he? Why her, of all people? Some pitied me, others hinted at what I feared. Maybe Eric still had feelings for Cassandra. The thought made me nauseous. That evening I found Cassandra tagged in new photos online. She and Eric at a business dinner, laughing over wine. No mention of me. No ring on his hand. My chest tightened as betrayal turned to rage. But underneath the rage, confusion. Why her? Why now? And why the secrecy? I told myself I had two choices. Confront them blindly or dig deeper. Chose the second. And the first crack appeared when I looked at Eric's briefcase, left carelessly by the sofa. Inside was a folder marked Founders Agreement. My name wasn't anywhere on it. But Cassandra's name was written boldly beside Eric's, tied together like they were already a married couple again. My hands shook. I whispered to myself, "This isn't just business. This is war." I sat on the couch long after Eric fell asleep. The Founders Agreement spread across my lap. My name wasn't anywhere in the document. No acknowledgement as his wife, no mention of shared assets, nothing. Cassandra, however, was listed as co-owner, with equal rights to profit, decision-making, even intellectual property. It wasn't just a business. It was a bond. A bond he hadn't given me. I whispered into the empty room. Why her? Why now? The next morning, Eric kissed my cheek absent-mindedly before rushing out with his laptop bag. He smelled faintly of Cassandra's perfume. I recognized it instantly. My stomach twisted. I decided I wasn't going to sit and rot in suspicion. If he wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. That afternoon, I drove downtown to the new office space Eric had rented. Through the glass windows, I could see Cassandra, dressed in a sharp blazer, standing far too close to my husband. They were laughing over something on his laptop, her hand brushing his arm casually like she owned him. I ducked away before they saw me, my chest burning. Instead of confronting them, I turned to someone I knew I could trust, my best friend Lila, who worked in finance. I laid the agreement on her desk. Her eyes widened as she skimmed the clauses. "Millie, this isn't normal. Cassandra has way too much control. Did you know she has authority to liquidate company assets without Eric's consent?" I blinked. "What does that mean?" Lila tapped the paper. "It means she can drain the company's accounts, sell off its shares, and legally Eric can't stop her. Unless..." She looked up, her face grim. "Unless he signed something tying his personal finances to this firm." My heart sank. "Our finances?" Lila nodded slowly. "If that's the case, Millie, she has leverage over you too. Cassandra could ruin you both, and walk away richer." The room spun. I thought Cassandra was just a bitter ex trying to cling to Eric. But this wasn't just personal. It was financial, strategic, calculated. That night when Eric came home, I tested him. "How was your dinner with Cassandra?" I asked, keeping my voice even. He froze for half a second before shrugging. "Productive. She has contacts that can open doors. This is going to be good for us, Millie." Was. The words tasted like poison. I wanted to scream. But instead I smiled tightly and said nothing. Because now I needed him to believe I was ignorant. While he showered, I slipped his phone from the nightstand. He changed his password. My chest tightened. But what he didn't know was that Cassandra had left her handbag open at the cafe weeks ago, and I'd memorized the last 4 digits of her phone number. It was the same sequence Eric used for everything. I tried it. His phone unlocked. My hands shook as I scrolled through messages. There it was. "Eric. Are you sure Millie doesn't know? Cassandra. She's naive. She won't figure it out. Just keep her distracted. Eric. She's starting to ask questions. Cassandra. Then give her answers she wants to hear. Once the contracts finalize, it won't matter." My vision blurred with rage. They were conspiring together. They were keeping secrets, not just about the business but about me. I dropped the phone back in place just as Eric walked out in a towel, humming like nothing was wrong. My heart pounded, but I forced my face calm. Because I knew one thing now. Cassandra wasn't his partner just for her connections. She was his partner in deception. The next morning I confided in Lila again. "They're hiding something bigger. They think I'm naive." Lila's jaw tightened. "Then it's time to stop being naive. You need to protect yourself. Start gathering proof. Financial records, contracts, texts. If they're tying your assets into this business, you'll need evidence when it blows up." I nodded, my pulse racing. That night, I lay awake next to Eric, listening to his steady breathing. My mind replayed Cassandra's words. "She's naive. She won't figure it out." I clenched my fists under the blanket. "Oh, Cassandra," I whispered silently. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Because I wasn't going to stay naive. I was going to become dangerous. I thought I was ready for anything. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found next. It started with a bank notification. At first I didn't notice. Eric always handled transfers. But the amount was wrong. Too large. $40,000 had been moved from our joint savings into the firm's new account. Without my permission. My chest tightened. 40,000. That wasn't business money. That was our emergency fund. The one we built together. Felt sick. When Eric came home, I tested him again. "Honey, did you make a transfer today?" I saw something odd. His eyes flickered. "Barely. But I caught it." "Oh, that. Just seed money for the firm. Standard stuff. Don't worry, it's temporary." "Temporary." He said it so casually. Like 40,000 wasn't the difference between safety and ruin. And then his phone buzzed. Cassandra's name lit the screen. He grabbed it so fast you'd think it was a bomb. I knew then. It wasn't just business. The next morning I drove to their office again. This time I didn't stay on the street. I walked inside, pretending to be delivering documents. Cassandra's assistant barely looked up as I slipped past. Through the frosted glass door I saw them. Eric and Cassandra. Close. Too close. His jacket on the chair. Her hand on his knee. His lips brushing her ear as she laughed. My stomach churned. Rage and nausea mixed until I thought I'd collapse. I backed away, heart pounding, and nearly ran straight into Cassandra's assistant. "Mrs. Ward. Can I help you?" I forced a smile. "No, just dropping this off." But inside I was breaking. That night I tore through Eric's study. If he wanted to hide secrets, I'd drag them into the light. And then I found it. Contract. Buried in a stack of drafts. The title read, Prenuptial Amendment Agreement. Name. His name. Cassandra's name. I scanned the clauses, my hands trembling. Eric had filed paperwork tying our marital assets directly to the new consulting firm, which meant if Cassandra drained it, I'd be financially ruined. Cassandra would walk away unscathed. Eric might recover with his career. But me, I'd be left with nothing. The signatures weren't there yet. But the intent was. He was preparing to make me collateral. I sank to the floor, the paper crumpling in my hands. And then a text buzzed on his iPad, left unlocked. From Cassandra. Dinner again tomorrow? I'll book the hotel. Same suite. Weep. Not meetings. Not business. I felt like my lungs collapsed. It wasn't just betrayal in finance. It was betrayal in flesh. Eric wasn't just stealing my money. He was sleeping with his ex-wife, and planning to leave me penniless in the fallout. When he came home that night, I sat perfectly still at the kitchen table, the contract hidden under a folder. He kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. Long day, he asked. I forced a smile. Very. Because in that moment I made a choice. I wouldn't confront him yet. Not until I had every piece of evidence. Not until Cassandra's smug smile could be wiped off her face in front of everyone, just like Eric humiliated me when he announced their partnership. I whispered inside my mind. You think I'm naive? You think I won't figure it out? Watch me. The next morning, I confided in Lila again. She listened in stunned silence as I laid out the contract, the messages, the bank transfers. Her face hardened. Millie, this isn't just betrayal. It's fraud. If he files this prenup amendment, he's tying you into debt you didn't agree to. And Cassandra, she's complicit. They're setting you up as the fall guy. I blinked back tears. So what do? Divorce. Expose them. If I make the wrong move, he'll drain everything before I can prove it. Lila leaned forward, her voice low. Then you need to play smarter. Collect proof. Build a case. And when the time comes, you don't just leave. You take them both down. I nodded slowly, my rage sharpening into resolve. That night, I returned to Eric's office, phone in hand, snapping photos of every document, every transfer, every message. I saved them to a hidden drive. Every file was a weapon. And as I looked at the growing folder of evidence, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Strength. They thought they were writing the story. But I was about to flip the script. I used to think of myself as quiet, someone who avoided conflict. But staring at the folder of evidence on my hidden drive, I realized, quiet wasn't weakness. Quiet was patience. And patience would win this war. The first step was securing my finances. With Lila's help, I opened a private account under my name only. I funneled part of my paycheck into it. Small amounts at a time so Eric wouldn't notice. I canceled automatic payments he set up one by one. It felt like cutting invisible strings he'd tied around me. Lila introduced me to a lawyer friend, Adam, who specialized in marital fraud. He studied the photos of the prenup amendment and the bank transfers. His jaw tightened. This isn't just suspicious. It's damning. If he files this, you'll be on the hook for half his firm's debts. Cassandra could bleed the company dry, and you'd pay for it. My throat tightened. Can we stop him? Adam nodded. Yes, with proof. But timing is everything. Don't confront him yet. Let him think you're blind. The more rope he takes, the harder he'll hang himself with it. Those words gave me hope. For the first time I didn't feel like prey. Felt like a hunter. Meanwhile I played my part at home. Smiling. Cooking dinner. Pretending to believe Eric's late-night strategy meetings with Cassandra. All the while, I slipped copies of receipts into my bag, screenshotted text messages, even recorded overheard conversations when he paced the kitchen on calls. One night he muttered, "Yes, Cassandra, once Millie signs it's clean. She won't know what hit her." My blood boiled, but I held the phone steady, recording every word. The next morning, I backed up the files and mailed a copy to Adam. If Eric or Cassandra discovered my plan, I wouldn't lose everything. But there was one more ally I didn't expect. Her name was Marissa, one of Cassandra's assistants. She found me one evening outside the firm's office, where I pretended to be waiting for Eric. She approached nervously, clutching her bag. "Mrs. Ward," she whispered. And blinked. "Yes." She bit her lip, then said quickly, "I shouldn't be telling you this, but Cassandra, she brags in the office. About replacing you. About how Eric will come back to her once the money's right. She thinks you're just baggage." The words sliced through me, but then Marissa handed me a manila envelope. "She left these contracts in the copier. I think you should see them." I opened it that night and nearly gasped. More forged agreements. Cassandra was inflating client numbers, securing loans against false figures. If exposed, it would ruin not just her but Eric too. I looked up at Marissa. "Why are you helping me?" Her eyes glistened. "Because she treats me the same way she treats you. Like I'm invisible. And invisible people notice everything." Hugged her. For the first time I felt the tide turning. Weeks passed and my case grew stronger. Adam built a timeline. The transfers, the forged contracts, the affair. Lila helped me track Cassandra's spending. Expensive jewelry, luxury dinners, hotel suites. All charged to the firm. Every night, I pretended to be asleep as Eric slipped into bed, smelling faintly of her perfume. I no longer cried. I no longer felt powerless. Because I knew what was coming. The final straw came one evening when Eric stumbled in, drunk with confidence. He waved a pen at me, grinning. "Millie, good news. I just need your signature on some paperwork." Standard stuff. I took the papers with steady hands. It was the prenup amendment. He thought I was blind. He thought I was naive. I smiled sweetly. "Of course, darling. I'll look it over tomorrow." He kissed my forehead and went upstairs. But instead of signing, I scanned the papers and sent them to Adam. "It's time," I wrote. The plan was simple. Expose them publicly the way they humiliated me. At the next investors' meeting, where Cassandra planned to announce their biggest contract yet, I would walk in with proof. Not just of their affair. Not just of their fraud. But of every secret they thought I was too naive to uncover. That night, lying beside Eric, I whispered into the dark. "You wanted me blind. But you're the one who never saw this coming." The day of the investors' meeting arrived with a tension so sharp it cut the air. Eric left early, adjusting his tie, kissing me on the cheek like nothing was wrong. I watched him from the doorway, his figure shrinking down the street, and whispered, "Enjoy the spotlight while you can." By the time I arrived at the hotel ballroom, the place was buzzing. Men in tailored suits, women in glittering heels, the clinking of glasses and soft murmur of moneyed conversations. At the front of the room stood a massive screen and a sleek podium adorned with Cassandra's firm logo, Ward and Clark Consulting. My last name. Her last name. As if I'd been erased completely. I slipped into the back row unnoticed. They didn't expect me here. They thought I was too naive, too small, too broken. But in my bag was a flash drive. On it, the photos, the contracts, the bank transfers, the messages. Every secret they'd buried. And on my phone, Adam waited for my signal, ready to file everything with the authorities the moment I gave the word. Cassandra walked onto the stage first, glowing under the spotlight in a crimson suit. Her smile was practiced, every step designed to radiate confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began. "Today marks a new chapter. Ward and Clark has secured our largest contract yet, one that will revolutionize consulting in this city." The crowd erupted in polite applause. Eric joined her, looking every bit the successful entrepreneur. He wrapped his arm around Cassandra's waist for a fraction of a second, subtle enough for the cameras to miss, obvious enough to make my blood boil. He cleared his throat. This firm was built on trust and expertise. And with Cassandra's invaluable partnership, we've become unstoppable. The audience clapped louder. Investors leaned forward eagerly. I gripped my bag tighter. They were parading their betrayal as triumph. But I wasn't here to cry. I was here to end it. Halfway through their presentation, as Cassandra boasted about record profits, I rose from my chair. The sound of it scraping against the marble floor turned heads. Few whispered. Eric's eyes found me. His face drained of color, then stiffened into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Millie," he said, his voice straining. "What a surprise." Cassandra's smile faltered for just a second. She hadn't expected me. I walked forward, heels clicking like a countdown. "Oh, don't stop on my account," I said, my voice carrying across the room. "I'd love to hear more about how you two built this empire." The murmurs grew louder. People sensed tension. Cameras shifted toward me. Cassandra tried to recover. "Millie, darling. This isn't the time." Cut her off. "You're right. The time is now." I pulled the flash drive from my bag, holding it up like a dagger. "Because while you've been selling lies to these investors, I've been collecting truths. Proof of forged contracts. Proof of money siphoned from joint accounts. Proof of an affair that makes your partnership more scandal than strategy." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. Eric's mask cracked completely. "Millie, don't do this." I met his eyes steady. "Don't worry, Eric. Already did. This drive has been sent to the compliance board, to the banks, and to your biggest client. By now, Adam has filed everything." The room erupted. Investors shouted over each other, demanding explanations. Cassandra's face twisted with fury. She grabbed the microphone. "She's lying. This is jealousy, not evidence." Smirk. "Then why don't you explain this?" I held up a contract blown up on the screen. One Marissa had slipped me. Cassandra's forged signature was visible even to the people in the back. The investors roared in anger. One shouted, "I put $2 million into this firm." Another, "This is fraud. You'll hear from my lawyers." Cassandra's voice cracked as she tried to speak. Eric stood frozen, sweat dripping down his temple. And me. I stood taller than I ever had before. The moderator rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently to security. They moved toward Cassandra and Eric as the chaos grew. I turned to leave, but not before leaning close enough for only Eric to hear. "You thought I was naive. You thought I wouldn't figure it out. But you made one mistake, Eric. You underestimated me." His lips parted, but no words came. As I walked out, the noise of their empire collapsing behind me, I felt the weight of months of betrayal lift off my chest. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of their downfall. Because once the courts and the press got hold of what I'd handed over, Cassandra and Eric weren't just going to lose investors. They were going to lose everything. The next morning, headlines exploded. Ward and Clark under fraud investigation. Investors file lawsuits against husband and ex-wife duo. From power couple to courtroom defendants. Photos of Eric and Cassandra storming out of the investors' meeting flooded the internet. Cassandra's crimson suit, once a symbol of power, was now the image of scandal. Home, Eric tried to spin it. "Millie, listen. We can fix this. You don't have to destroy me." I cut him off, my voice cold. "You destroyed yourself the moment you chose her over us." For once he had no comeback. Days later, subpoenas arrived. Cassandra's forged contracts were undeniable. The bank traced the siphoned funds. Even their hotel receipts surfaced. Every secret they thought buried became front-page news. Lila sent me a text with a screenshot of Cassandra's frozen accounts. "Looks like your payback just cashed in." Eric moved into a friend's spare room while awaiting charges. Cassandra vanished from social media. Her empire of fake glamour turned to dust. As for me, I walked into my lawyer Adam's office with my head high. "Let's file for divorce," I said firmly. "And let's make sure he walks away with nothing he stole." Adam smiled. Now that's the voice of a winner. And for the first time in months I believed it. 6 months later, I signed the final divorce papers with steady hands. Eric didn't even look at me across the table. His once confident posture slumped under the weight of lawsuits and debts. Cassandra wasn't there. She was already negotiating her own sentence. As I walked out, the spring air felt new, clean. People whispered my name now, not with pity, but with respect. The woman who exposed them. The wife who fought back. Lila hugged me outside the courthouse. "So what's next, Millie?" I smiled, feeling lighter than ever. "Whatever I want. And this time, it'll be mine alone." I wasn't the naive woman they conspired against. I was the storm that ended them. And as I looked at the sky, I whispered to myself. They thought they could erase me. Instead, I erased them. Sometimes betrayal gives you two choices: break down or break free. Chose the second. If my story resonated, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of justice, revenge, and strength.